Greetings and salutations, guys. Welcome back to W.A.S.D. It's our second day here, and I've been waiting fucking ages to get my hands on this. Quick side note, hi Steve, got Arcade Paradise. I'm here with Gray from Those Being Interactive. Arcade Paradise. I've been waiting ages for this, but you can tell the guys watching what it is.
So Arcade Paradise is an arcade management simulator where every arcade game that you sort of buy for your arcade is fully playable. And we're not talking tiny little sort of throwaway mini games, we're talking experiences that could play for maybe 2-3 hours at a time. That's basically the gist of it. You're also running a laundrette and basically everything is playable. So set in the early 90s, we play as Ashley, whose first day you start at this horrible laundrette, working for your dad, who's played by Doug Coppell, who you'll know from the Witcher series of games, as Geralt. He's called Gerald in this game, and he's in the Riviera. So obviously I'm a big games fan, and meeting Doug is amazing. But yeah, so you start in this, working in this laundrette, and you're doing people's washing for them, and like cleaning the toilet, and picking up litter and that sort of stuff. And there's a few arcade machines in the back, and it turns out they're making more money than the laundrette itself. So Ashley thinks, right, I'm going to buy some more arcade machines, and very quickly they run out of space, so they build an extension, put more arcade machines in. Pretty soon you end up running this mega arcade.
It's quite a mental idea, because you've got the mundane tasks of doing the laundry, and then you instantly think there's this massive arcade and everything's playable. That's brilliant. But you've got to manage the arcade as well, so you've got to fix the machines, you've got to empty the hoppers, you've got to clear the trash up, and it's this kind of, you've got a sense to play it then, like, taking back to my childhood of like, if I do my chores really quickly, I can get some time to gaming.
There's definitely elements of that. I mean, I grew up in the 90s, and like if I buy a new game, just one example of this, when I bought a new game, I'd go on the bus into town, buy a game. On the bus, on the way back, I'd be like looking all the way through the manual, super excited, get home, like leg it back up to my room and be like, yay! And so we kind of want to replicate that to a certain extent. So when you buy a new arcade machine, you have to, you buy it from this kind of fake web browser, and you have to wait until the next day for it to arrive. And then when it arrives, it comes with this totally over the top, like sort of loot box style animation, like totally over the top. And then you place it down, and then you're like, yes, I can go and play it finally. But part of the reason for the whole kind of the laundrette sort of bit of it is we didn't just want to do like an arcade collection, because those exist already, and they're great, but we wanted this to feel not just like a collection of games. The game itself, the whole running of the arcade, the whole simulation side of it, and playing the games all needs to tie in together. So where you start, everyone's had dead-end jobs. Like I've worked in some kitchens and like cafes and stuff like that, and you're daydreaming about, like, while you're washing dishes, you're daydreaming about like making games or whatever. And so a lot of it is based on that. But we wanted the player to have this sort of agency of, we want them to feel like they're progressing in the same way that Ashley does. Plus we've got a kind of a story that is relayed by sort of, phone calls and sort of text messages, and emails and that sort of stuff. And so that kind of gives the player a kind of reason to kind of go back and a real proper sense of progression. Because you start with this like concrete back room that's just a storeroom that's got 3 arcade machines, and then the next sort of upgrade, you've got the nice neons and that sort of stuff, and eventually, the whole place looks properly nice with vending machines and like leaps and bloops and that sort of stuff.
But it's not like you're saying, it's not just an anthology of games, because it's like games within a game. But how hard was it to produce 35 full games?
It's my lead programmer around. Very hard. So we built everything from scratch. Like there are some.
These are all your original games as well. These are ports of it.
These aren't emulations or anything like that. We've drawn influence from everywhere. So I'm a big gamer. Stardew Valley's had a big influence on it. Modern Warfare has had a big influence on it. Animal Crossing has in certain ways. There's a lot of influence. I mean, there's a game in there that's based on Towers of Hanoi, the old like sort of maths puzzle game. So we take. We're not just doing kind of old school arcade games. There is that, but we're kind of doing them for a modern audience. You know, obviously arcade games were built to take your money. With this, they are modern games with modern sensibilities that just look like arcade games. So, you know, we've got a twin stick shooter in there. I mean, obviously there's stuff that's sort of similar. Robotron maybe could count as a twin stick shooter, but this is like a proper twin stick shooter. Like, you know, our previous game, W.A.S.D, is in there. So yeah, well, and you know, we learned a lot making that about kind of game feel of twin stick shooters. So we got this zombie shooter game that wouldn't really, you know, that wouldn't really be an arcade, but it feels at home there because it looks right and it's got the right sounds and it kind of feels right. Yeah. But you know, we've got a full weapon upgrade system there with like a shop that has permanence, so it's not like game over, done. It's, you know, it saves what weapons you purchase. So you always feel like you're progressing within those games as well.
But you've made this 35 games, these full games. Whose idea was it then to go, I know what, we should put all these together in one game?
Well, probably, yeah, mine, basically. So all our games have always had mini games.
Or was the idea for Arcade Paradise come before the games? Or did the games come after?
All our games have always had mini games in. It's kind of a dream project because we always want to do, like, sort of, I love Shenmue, basically, and it's part of me that really enjoys those like games within games. But we really needed a way to tie it all together, so it's not just darting about just playing this one for the sake of it. So when you're playing the games themselves, you're rewarded by their popularity rising. You can do achievements with it, well, goals we call them, but basically mini achievements within each of the games, which rises their popularity as well. So when you're managing them, they'll be making more money, so you can buy the next one. And I think it's that feeling of what's next, giving the player a little bit of choice, you know, one of like 4 or 5 machines that they can buy next, and like tying that together as well.
There is a genuine sense of progression in it. Yeah. Whether that's the expansion of the arcade out back of it, or whether it's the permanent weapons in games. Like you play a little bit like go do the long, come back, you're not going to play that last hour over again. Your guns are in place.
Exactly. I mean, some of the games are literally sort of high score chases, but the ones that you would expect to have permanence do, and they do. You know, you've got games in there that might take 2 or 3 hours to complete from start to finish, just by themselves, that have this permanence and this kind of progression system, and even their own stories. I mean, they're all daft stories, but so there's a lot. It's a big game.
How long has it taken to make this? How long have you been working on it for now?
It must be coming up for 3 years.
That's not bad.
Yeah,
it's not bad actually. I would expect it to be like at least 5.
No.
It's not bad 3 years. It's good going.
Yeah, and we're coming to all platforms as well, so that's where we're at the moment.
So you're coming very soon as well, aren't you?
Yeah, we are looking to launch this summer. We're not saying an exact date just yet.
Not yet, but this summer on all platforms.
Yeah.
Cannot wait. I mean, we've played a little bit there, and honestly, I didn't want to come off it.
Well, thank you very much.
It's fantastic. Thank you very much, Kate. I look forward to playing the rest of it.
Cheers.